All right, this Constitution has been amended 27 times, each time through Congress. But Article 5 in the Constitution allows for a second way, a convention of states. And 2 more states have joined the growing movement to invoke a convention of states to amend the Constitution. Nebraska and Wisconsin are now the 16th and 17th states. And according to Article 5, it takes 34 states to call the convention. And 19 more states are teed up to vote on whether to do the same this year. So how would it work? Joining us now is the man behind the movement, President of Convention of States Action, Mark Meckler. Mark, thanks for joining us for this. Break this down. What's going to happen and how would this work?
Basically, Article 5 says that the states can gather in convention when 2/3 of them ask for it. And in this case, what the states are asking for is a convention to discuss fiscal restraints on the federal government. That would include a balanced budget amendment, things like that, tax and spending caps, term limits for federal officials, so not just Congress, but also in the deep state, the staffers, the bureaucrats, and even the federal judiciary. And then importantly, the third thing is any scope or jurisdiction limits on the federal government. And that means things like telling them they can't be involved in education or energy or the environment or healthcare, things they were never intended to be involved in. And once 2/3 of states call for convention, the states will gather in convention. They'll debate amendments, proposed amendments around those ideas. And if half of the states, or 26, the majority of states agree, then those proposed amendments go out to the states for ratification.
Let me ask you this. You've been working on this project since 2013. Why has it never been used before?
Yeah, I would say because it's hard. I mean, it's really hard. And that's how the founders intended it to be. It's the highest bar in the American system of governance, to have to get 2/3 of states to agree just to have a conversation, 3/4 of states to ratify. The founders intended it for it to take many years and involve millions of people so that we knew we actually had a broad consensus across the American public. They didn't want fads in popular opinion causing a convention of states and causing us to amend the Constitution. So it's long, slow work. Over 5 million people involved in the movement nationally today. Like you said, we've just passed the halfway mark, and a lot of states are queued up to go here pretty quickly.
So 2 questions. How long can it go on? Is there like an end point? And B, let's say you hit the number. When does it have to happen and where does it happen? So that's 3 questions.
Yeah, so there is no end point. These resolutions, they're out there as long as they're out there until a state withdraws the resolution. And so it could take years. I'm hoping to get that done by 2024, maybe 2026 at the outside. And then once they actually convene in convention, they're going to get together. They'll set their own time limits. But where it takes place, Congress names the time and place. And so likely they'll call it for Washington, D.C., because they're D.C. creatures. But I expect that once they meet, the delegates themselves, 1 vote, 1 state, but as many delegates as they want from every state, will move it back to somewhere in the center of the country. That's what I'm hearing from all the state legislators.
All right, let's say you do get all 34. You talk about proposing these amendments. Do you have a strategy in place? What does that look like? What are you trying to amend?
Yeah, we do actually, and the 3 subject matter areas are important. Like I said, fiscal restraints, term limits, and limiting the scope and jurisdiction. But it involves things like a balanced budget amendment. 85% of Americans say the federal government should get their fiscal house in order. They'll never do it on their own. You could impose generally accepted accounting principles. They have no principles in D.C. You could impose tax and spending caps. You could tell them, no, you can't have a Department of Education or energy or environment, things that were always intended to be handled by the states. And importantly, you could limit the terms, not just of Congress. I think this is really important. Staffers and bureaucrats, who we now know are the deep state, that serve 30, 40 years there and really control things. So those are the kind of amendments that would be proposed at a convention.
Real quick, can you add to this list? So, for example, I had somebody go to my website when I told them we were going to have you on, and they said, could you add voter ID?
Yeah, look, we could theoretically add voter ID, but we wouldn't want to specifically because, remember, this is intended to limit the power of the federal government. That would be an imposition by the federal government. We don't want the federal government controlling elections. We want the states controlling elections.
I don't want to control elections. I just want voter ID.
We do too. We're fighting for that,
Mark,
by the way.
this is so fascinating. I love this. Both Lindsay and I came to work today and we're like, were you reading Article 5 today? So this is awesome. You educated us, and I hope the viewers found it fascinating as well.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you guys.
You bet. Thank you so much. All right.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.